Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and we are continuing our discussion of Obsidian Star. And I got to hear the tail end of that, and it was a drop of silence. It was just very strange. Anyway, um, it sometimes. Side note: before we do our true introduction, um, when you're by yourself and you have to go live and try out different things, sometimes it's a little bit strange because you don't know what the reaction is going to be until you actually see it live. No matter how many times you take a look at your own creation on the side, it's a very strange object. Anyway, hello everyone. Thank you very much for being here. According, thank you there, Palace. I really appreciate it. Ordered it from Amazon, took a logo, ordered it, wanted to see what it would look like through a like one-off printable t-shirt. Don't know about the quality, to be honest with you, but it is one big giant um heat pressed label. It does feel that way. It's got that even the black part of it isn't, it's not empty. It's actually the color print on there. So I don't know. One of these days I, I'm sure it won't be a problem trying to make like merch or whatever, but it wasn't my intention. It was literally just like, hey, I wonder if this would work. It's a pretty simple logo and such. So thank you very much. So of course, rewind. Obsidian Star is a tabletop role playing game I'm working on live for free. So taste a bit of this giant heat press label. Sounds like home. I don't know if that sounds good or bad. I mean, if it's cold outside and you got the heat, but being pressed, especially into work or labor or something, maybe that would sound pretty harsh. The title on the thumbnail says, if I could pronounce it for you, it does say yes, no, if, and, or buts on purpose. And we're going to talk a little bit about the indie tabletop role playing game tendency to go towards partial success, um, failure, but moving forward. It's the yes, no. It's the if or the and of doing a thing. So we will talk about that a little bit. Shai says the synth guy in my new band has a t-shirt label. Yeah, send me to hell. I can ask you about the best way to apply a logo like that. Have you got a vector graphic? I am pretty simple. I just use Canva for just about everything, only because I know how it works. And I understand that it's not it is not the top notch create anything you want kind of system, because I'm a bit old and crotchety. I'm like, young folk, get off my lawn kind of guy. So it takes me a little bit to get into a thing, and then also the timing involved in it. So we're going to talk a little bit about partial success and failure, how I came to it, why it exists the way it does with the 2d12, this rolling two 12-sided dice to achieve a success or failure. Oh yes, he says I just mean a graphic that's scalable without loss of quality. I am not familiar with that, and I'm sure from my armchair perspective, probably have to go with a like a third party that's better at it. Because I'm sure there's some, like, this is from Amazon, right? These are one-offs, but doing that at a large scale, I'm not sure what kind of quality they'd be able to punch out, because it depends on where they, what companies they partner with, right? You either get a small mom and pop thing in their garage, or you get like a place that punches out 5,000 t-shirts a day or something. So I'm not sure. No, not sure at all. So partial success, partial failure. We're going to talk about a little bit about that, and then we're going to go into technology. I remember yesterday, I could not remember what the End King had discussed or talked about, or whatever. I now remember it, and I promised myself I wouldn't forget it. And it has to do with categories of technology, and it fits his comment and my method of how to categorize technology in science fiction, which some people have a problem with, and merging the two ideas together to come up with how technology is used, what's available to the player characters, how do we not have, how do we prevent the role playing sessions where players go shopping, because which can be a problem, but also being able to control how much technology is available within various spaces of the system, of capital T, capital S, the system, our solar system, and where it's available, and how to control access to it as the spiral, as the game master, storyteller, or what have you, and that kind of thing. Friendly cotton is way too expensive, but he insists on ah. Thank you. Shitlords is like, dude, people will buy your shirt, at least 5 of them. Well, thank you very much. Uh, yeah, and I would hope to have options. Like, I thought about just getting a black T-shirt with basically the black logo, and I think the letters are in red and such. I think that would look really cool. To, with like a gray and white, like letters in red, and then the gray and white stars just shooting across that that way. Um, yeah. So thank you very much. Uh, anyway, partial success, partial failure. All right. So this game uses a 2d12 system, and one of the issues with many role playing games are dead rolls. Basically, a player grabs the dice, attempts to make a roll to achieve some kind of action, and then uh, the worst thing that can happen is nothing happens. So sometimes it's not necessarily failure or success, but the in between, where there's a die roll and nothing happens, but it also doesn't progress the story forward. It doesn't move the character backwards. It's literally just nothing. Yeah. So yeah, getting into the technical stuff. So using this 2d12 system, and you guys remember that we were talking about the statistics. We have attributes, and we also have approaches. And I was going to tell myself not to share this out, but I prefer people not to look at my face. I prefer to look at some more interesting things. So the generalization of what, anytime a player wants to do anything, you're going to pick an attribute, you're going to pick one of your approaches. All players start with the 3 attributes, and then for your approaches, you pick 3 of those. And I wanted something very narrative. So for example, whenever you do anything, the way this is described, it tells us immediately. Yeah, you're so right there, Caligulus. Your life is partially successful failure. You are absolutely right. We're I am a living example of stumbling through life and getting a lot of really good roles. I've had a very blessed life. I can't complain. A failure, but an interesting one, like the film Immortel Ad Vitam. Ad Vitam. I'm not familiar with that film, but maybe other people are. So we already know, even before we start rolling dice, what is narratively happening in the scene, in the world, based on what the player wants to do. If they're Are they being forceful, like forceful through their personality, like basically telling a city, a security guard, you're going to let me through or else? Are they using their instead of force, are using flex, where they are kind of going around the situation? Maybe they're dressed in um clothing and have a clipboard, and they're walking forward, and the security guard's like, hey, stop there, and they're like, dude, I gotta keep going, man. I can't wait for you. There's an emergency. I'm really late or something. And then there's a fulcrum, which is using the least amount of energy to get the greatest effect you want. So we talk about that. And then your approaches are like bold, careful, focused, subtle, swift, and wild. And that tells us what you're doing in the scene. So we have that narrative part. But what happens when Oh, thanks, Shice. Yeah, like your retirement at age 55 is going to be a critical success. I can't wait. Can't wait till I reach it. Um, I'm 53. So yeah, I can't wait. Um, I could retire at 55, but I get my maximum at 57. So I've got 4 years. So not only do we know what, like, how the character is acting, but by rolling 2d12, there's I wanted to eliminate the dead roll. And what I mean by the dead roll is in classic fantasy D20 system, Dungeons and Dragons and all its derivatives, you may need to roll a 14 or above to make a success. If you roll below that, you fail. And we haven't described a partial success or failure in classic D20. There's actually a very easy way to do it. You could just do 5 below and 5 above, and then anything that falls into that 10 numbered range would be partial, but we just don't do that. Yeah, yeah. Shit, Lord, it's like, yeah, fuck, man. 20 plus years of full-time game design and cruise ships, living the dream. Hells yes, here in the States, we have easier access to the Caribbean, which is just very warm. And so where our country is located, and just travel south and just get on a cruise ship. Yeah, I'm a person of a certain age that loves this kind of stuff. So yeah. Deadman says Immortal in 2004. Okay. In the distant future, Earth is occupied by ancient gods and genetically altered humans. When a god is sentenced to death, he seeks a new human host and a woman to bear his child. Ooh, oh, that sounds like gods right there, right? Like, hey, lady, you don't have a choice because I'm Zeus now. I'm going to shape change into something that could procreate with you rather violently. Good old Zeus. Shay says, God damn it, 57 is good enough. My friend Terrace in Mine, okay, turned 62 years ago and had to jump through a bunch of hoops to retire. He had to pretend he was mentally ill and they made him go to therapy. Wow. There are horror stories. Uh, retirement wise, work wise, working as a letter carrier is just an investment of time. And in the beginning, it doesn't look like much, but by the end of it, between all the investment plan and the Social Security I'm going to get, and my pension, and the health care that carries over, and the life insurance and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and the amount of money I earned, all that. Yeah, it's just an investment of time here in the States. Um, but side note, if I could do a recruit, if you have a lack of education but you have a dedication to work, please join the Postal Service. We really need you, and the outcomes at the end are awesome. Shitlord says Germany hates people who work. Can't speak on that, but I'm going to uh, uh, default to what you guys have to say. Sounds like we are, as a society, we're reaching that tipping point, that UBI tipping point, universal basic income, where a, a large majority of the population is working for a even growing larger uh, portion of the population that isn't working. That's a big thing. That's kind of a thing here in it's kind of a big thing in Obsidian Star. It's going to be an issue. All right, so what happens when you roll 2d12? Well, you have one attribute and one approach, and you want to roll high, but not above that particular statistic. And so what happens is one or both dice will let you know whether you have um, two failures, one failure, one success, or two successes. In addition to that, when you roll doubles, you gain double. So if you roll double fours, it acts like an 8, even if your stats aren't 8s. And if you roll ones, that's always a success. And if you roll 12, it's always a failure. And so in between this, we get ourselves a number range that lets us know what the hell's going on. Yeah, I did bring up UBI. Shai says, UBI, damn it. We are going to have a uniform basic pension where it doesn't matter how much you worked in your life. they dole out the same breadcrumbs to every. Really? Ooh, that's kind of horrible. That's not a good incentive for you to do a thing now to get something in the future. That's Yeah, the system sucks, but we are here to hear about Obsidian Star. Yeah, so I because I what ends up happening here, Caligula's, for their in their defense, is that we are all um brilliant individuals, and we like to have discussions about difficult and problematic and emotional topics. So that ends up what's happening. So when you roll 2d12, what happens is that there's always something happening. Whether you have a double success, both dice are successful. A double failure, both dice are above both of your attribute and approach that you picked, or you have some kind of mixed messaging, mixed outcome, mixed messaging. And so with that, not only can we I like to use the analogy of picking a lock, right? In classic D20, you roll the dice, you need to roll 15 or higher. You either do it or you don't. You either pick the lock or you don't. But in this case, you can, if you get a success in a mixed result, a success and a failure, one of the dice you roll is high but not above one of your stats. The other die is high and above, one's below and one's above one of your stats. You both succeed in what you're doing and fail in the outcome. And because of how the approaches are listed, bold, careful, focused, subtle, swift, and wild, um, we can tell what is happening. For example, if you try to pick a lock, did you open the door or pick the lock, but your lock picks broke? Did you make a lot of noise? Did you set off an alarm? Um, did 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 you open what you're trying to open, but now all the other locks that you're trying to open are now not able to be opened because you set off some sort of contingency? Maybe you did open the lock, but there's something inside of the mechanism that wants to destroy um, what you were going after, maybe important documents or digital information or something like that. Yes. But I says, yeah, it's true. Bitching about the system is what Twitter's for. This here is content for intellectual escapism. Absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about the UBI thing too, in a fantasy science fiction kind of matter, speculative fiction, because that's what this is. Obsidian Star is going to be speculative fiction, meaning that we're going to speculate in a scientific manner. What would the world be like? What would the universe be like? And so by rolling the dice, the concept of the yes, no, and or yes, no, if, and or buts. Ooh, that's a tongue twister that I created for no reason, good reason. The could we just make a roll and just you have a yes, no, pass, fail? Of course, because if you want to keep the action moving, do that. But if you want to add more to it beyond yes or no, then we have the if and or but reaction to it. And so convincing the guard that you should pass by, maybe you do convince the guard, but the guard then reconsiders and then calls um, a superior or calls more security or decides to follow the player characters, the stars. Very different other things could be happening. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make lists of this. Maybe some third party event happens that complicates what the characters are doing. So characters try to break in, they want to pick the lock, they pick the lock, they get inside, but who's to say there isn't another criminal or who that's in there, or who's to say that they aren't doing a training exercise at the exact same time with the guards? So there's more guards, but they're not looking for you, but there's twice as many guards in this building than you imagined. Or maybe you successfully pick the lock and you know how to do it, but the information you were looking for, it's not there. They moved it somewhere else, or the individual who was hiding the documentation has it in their back pocket now, and you're like, oh, don't, you know, yeah. And well, thank you very much for defining that, because that's exactly what I was going to talk about. Obsidian UBI in what form? Currency or supplies? That's the point. How do you define a universal basic assistance, income, or something? Is it just shelter? and a pass to gain simple clothing and food? Is it about education and that kind of thing? And so, depending on the habitat that you go to, and this is going to be available to players, and I'm not players, to you guys to create your own habs and places where you go. Even that definition will be flexible based on what your needs are. So is it just handing out cash, like money, to people and letting them do what they want, or is it more of a specificity of here's specific housing in this district that is only reserved for those who are at basic subsistence, but those who want to work or gain other things through merit or work or in intellectual property or helping out the community, they gain extra things. That's going to be dependent on what you guys want. I mean, there are going to be examples, of course, absolutely, but yeah. Shai says, "Do they even have doors with locks that can be picked in the future? Sounds kind of primitive to me. Work for customers now that have all sorts of security doors nobody will ever pick." Yes, it's a you are correct. In the sense of like using a lock pick to pick a lock is a little bit more. It, Back in the old days, we had locks with keys, regular old keys. Yeah, no, maybe not that. Yeah, maybe they pay you in cortical stacks. Maybe backup insurance. Case you hey, no need to pay you hazard pay or worry about your dead body. We're just going to give you uh, cortical stack backup insurance, and if your body dies, we'll just go get your stack and just re-instance your zip your body into another jacket and kick you back out into the world. Yep, Dead Man says, like in Shazam Fury of the Gods, when Freddie Freeman steals the golden apple he knocked over the pedestal it was sitting on. Exactly. Some other event might happen in the world with a partial success failure system, and we can foreshadow. So let's not make it random. We can foreshadow a thing that might happen during the action. And so they're going to be lists like little random tables and things that are possibilities when someone takes an action. So for example, let's say, I don't know, the players are running across, they're in low gravity in a dome city on Luna, the moon. Please don't call it the moon. People don't like called that. So they're on Luna, they're in a big dome city, and the the vast majority of the city is built in the bowl of a crater. So the big dome and the large crater makes a big opening. So there's lots of places for the players to, in light gravity, run, jump, parkour, free run, and parkour their way across the rooftops and balconies of the city, and they're running away from the authorities. And so many other things could happen. Maybe there are flying vehicles or wingsuits, squirrel suits and things like that flying around. Maybe the players go and snatch a couple of those to get away from the authorities. Maybe there are, as the players are running along, there are many citizens that have actions and reactions to what the players are doing. Maybe they call the authorities, or they try to uh, make one of the player characters grab him by the ankle and make him trip and fall, or they throw rotten vegetables. I don't know why people would keep rotten vegetables around, but maybe they throw rotten vegetables at the PCs or what have you. Maybe there's some kind of aerial public transportation in this dome city that flashes by the player characters, throwing them off their game or impacting them or something of that nature. Maybe there are nets or even drones that are flying around to go after the player characters, because maybe the drones think that they're just debris that's falling, and they want to like snatch up the debris and grab a PC by an ankle and take them off to the side and dump them in a dumpster or whatever. Things like that. So there may be like third party elements involved in it. Maybe there are a bunch of kids that are out there parkouring their way across the rooftops, and the adults out there like, "Ah, damn kids, get off my lawn," doing the whole fist in the air kind of thing. And maybe those kids see the player characters and they're like, "Hey, there's a rival gang," or "Hey, I'll show you where the best places to run, jump, swing, tumble, whatever." A bunch of silly things. And so having being open to the idea that both players can succeed or partially succeed and still keep the action moving forward is always possible. Heck, a player that somehow gets into a safe, picks a lock, digital lock or whatever, they get into the safe, they might actually get what they're looking for, but what they're looking for is encrypted. What they're looking for is half of one. It's the um, encrypted legend, so they have the ability to decrypt the information that they want, but they don't have the information they want. They just have the key to unlock the encryption that maybe the bad guy, their nemesis, their adversary has that's somewhere else. Again, maybe they open up the safe, they get what they want, but it sets off an alarm, or what the player characters have in their back pocket is being traced by the authorities, and now they have to run for it, knowing that their adversaries know exactly where they're going. Or maybe this information is going to self-destruct. It's going to erase itself in a certain amount of time, and they have to run from one place to another. Maybe some black market decryption system or something to whatever. So you can start stacking. The idea is to stack more and more problems onto the player characters. Simply known as conundrums with a capital C, and do that way. Uh, Taste of Banat says, if you're effectively immortal from switching bodies all the time, do they even need to pay people UBI? That's a good question. That's a good question. Well, first of all, we need to find out how much access does the public have to being technically immortal. Um, uh, so let's move away from the yes, no, if, and, or buts part. Essentially, you're going to roll 2d12. You're going to pick which die is equal to or lower than your statistic. Um, and when you're going head to head with another player character or another portion of the game, you want to roll as high as you can without busting. It's like blackjack. So if your attribute is a 5 and your approach is a 4, you don't want to roll you don't want to roll above a 5 or a 4 because that's a failure. You want to roll within either of those two number ranges, preferably both. And so if you're rolling against someone else who has a 7 and an 8, they have a higher number range to roll within, but you could still beat them if the person with a 7 and an 8 only rolls a 2 and a 3. If that makes sense. You want the higher number, but you don't want to burst above it. If you're going up against someone who has higher statistics, usually it's something like a giant robot or mechanism or AI or whatever that's more brilliant than you, faster than you, stronger than you, tougher than you. In order for your numbers to count, you either have to roll doubles. So let's say your character has a 5 and a 4 in one of your statistics, and you roll double 4s. Those double 4s become an 8. So if you roll double 4s, you effectively have rolled an 8 and an 8. So you not only do you succeed pretty damn well, even though your stats are lower, right? You went above because doubles double. You first rolled double 4s, which means that they are equal to or below your stats. Great. And because I rolled double 4s, now they're acting as an 8. Boom, you get to do what you want. The other way of doing it is you have to spend a point of strive to push yourself further so that whatever you roll is effective against whoever you're going against that has higher stats than you. Because both statistically and numerically, someone or something that higher stats than you is always going to win against you. I mean, it's just statistically, it's just going to keep happening over and over and over again. You'll just keep losing and losing and losing. And so in order to push yourself beyond your limits, you spend strive to do a thing. So what ends up happening is your strive score is, I hate to describe it as hit points. It's more like a willpower, stamina, luck mechanism, a press your luck mechanism. And so you will be spending your strive, which essentially means anyone that's tougher than you effectively starts to have, or even maybe statistically, I don't mathematically in my head, I can't really figure it out, but it will basically have your strive score because you're going to be burning strive to achieve higher, to try to even gain successes against something tougher than you. Yeah. It says Shitlord says maybe they only give effective immortality to the elites. First of all, absolutely. Now there are lower class people who are effectively immortal because their labor is being used without their permission, right? It's forced labor. Like, yeah, oh, you can live forever. You're just going to do what we tell you to do until such time as you either don't want to do it anymore, in which case we'll find somebody else, or you break out the system. But the elites, hell's yes. They have very easy access to being able to switch bodies, to zip themselves into jackets that they prefer to be in. Player characters kind of fall in the middle because player characters technically aren't. They are elite because they have access to things, but they aren't elite because they're not you don't necessarily start out as the richest, most powerful person in the world. Caligula says, "So, are you saying maybe nothing has changed?" Yes, the technology is out there, and yet nothing has changed with society. The rich have access to things, and the poor don't. Unfortunately, that's the case. Now, how do you measure rich and poor? When you have like 3D printing and essentially a utopic society? Well, that's the big question, right? How do we measure those kind of things? So let's go. I'm going to move over to uh, I'm going to move over to something that let me increase the size of this a little bit more, a little bit, because I can't see it on the screen. There we go. Technology categories. So can I get all 12 of them in here? Okay, we'll leave it at that. All right. So um uh Shai says, so there would have to be pirates who smuggle immortality tech on the black market. Even in the 25th century, the free market is unstoppable. Oh, hell's yes. Black market immortality is a thing. And why it exists and what the players have to do with this. When we conceive of immortality, technological immortality, it sounds to us like, well, wait a minute, if I can just re unzip my mind from my current body, my jacket, and put it into another one, well, life would be great, wouldn't it? Well, here's the issue. Can you trust the system that allows you to do that thing? It's like the person who questions Star Trek transporter system. Yes, we see Star Trek and they trust the transporter system, but should we? Right? You gotta get that higher point. Like, should we trust the transporter system? We've seen the transporter system have issues, and that means you have to trust a third party with your immortality, and that's where the conflict slash drama comes from. So would you trust a black market agency to ensure that your brain wasn't modified when it got zipped into another body? Um, just hey, that combat body, that jacket that you really wanted, that's on a moon on Saturn, and you're on Mars. Are you really going to get zipped into that jacket? I mean, can you trust that that's going to happen? And if it does, are there going to be implants involved in it? Has some of your memories been deleted or blocked or copied and sold? That kind of thing. Banat says immortality is way more democratic in my country as long as you don't go out in the sun. Yeah, that's silly. Yeah, but are there habitats where everyone has access to this technology? Sure. Are there other habs, other places to live in our solar system where they go like, you don't deserve any of this unless you owe us time, money, information, your loyalty, um, those kind of things. Maybe even you have to sacrifice a bit and piece of your memory, or maybe a little chunk of your soul to achieve just a few more decades of immortality to go back home to where you really want to be. Heck, people could even have your complete memories and body and use that as a threat above you, and you're living in a body you're not comfortable in with a mind that is incomplete to fulfill a mission to get back to right. And so in this role-playing game, and yes, I understand Altered Carbon and the other game, Eclipse Phase, do the same things. And It's not new. They didn't create this. These are the questions and concerns of people who don't play role-playing games but are concerned about transhumanism and post-humanism. And I like having these questions. Shai says, trusting the immortality tech? Yeah. You mean you might end up as a brain in a jar being stimulated with a false hologram of reality? Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes. Yeah, you could wake up in a virtual reality and not know it. You could wake up in a virtual reality to be questioned before they even let you zip into the jacket that you desire later on. Caligula says, so if you're not an elite and you can't afford to pay the immortality smugglers, the only way to become immortal is to be a slave for eternity. Essentially, yes. Essentially, yes. Unless you play your cards right, or you make a connection with other individuals who are, out and down for the same things, right? You maybe working within the system may not work for you, so then you try to work outside the system. Maybe your system needs people that have such incomplete minds or otherwise malfunctioning souls. Ooh, Drew. Yeah, yeah. That's also a possibility as well. And remember, here's the difficult part about this technological immortality as well. And something I'm still trying to write and work on, to use the least amount of words to express this very difficult concept. And that is, I want people to play this game, but I want you to understand that your mind, it again, your mind is rent to own and your body is a lease coming to the end of its contract. You may think you are a badass mercenary, but in reality, those might just be artificial memories. Um, or maybe those memories were implanted inside of you, and those are the memories of one of your adversaries. Um, so on and so forth. So maybe when you make up your player character technically is a subordinate to the real you, who's an asshole who lives somewhere else. And you're playing your character with all the stats and everything, but technically there's somebody bigger and badder and more powerful than you, and you're just an operative, a subsetted, you know, uh, lesser copy of the real operative who is waiting for you to finish a mission, and then maybe you're just useless. Maybe you are a copy whose only usefulness is to fulfill the mission. And then, does that make you a real you, even though you're a copy of somebody else who is you? Those are the questions I want to answer. And it could be a little bit, I think it may throw some players off, that their own backstory might literally itself be fake or incomplete or something like that. Is it possible to join the elites if you kiss the right asses? Maybe or maybe not. Maybe those elites have done all the ass kissing and they don't want to be threatened. Or maybe you're smarter than the elites and you sneak your way up into the elite status and then realize th- the elites don't really have it as well as you do. There's also something else that's very strange to think about and a little depressing. But if you follow me on this, the longer you live, the greater chance you have of dying. True immortality means you will probably die. And what I mean by that is, statistically speaking, in our universe, there is this 1 billionth of a 1 billionth of a chance that something will happen to you, some random event will happen to you to end your life. But we as humanity have such short lifespans that we don't even live long enough for that 1 billionth of a billionth of event to happen. The problem with immortality is, literally, we could die from the heat death of the universe. We could die from the explosion of our own galaxy. We could become lost in space as the universe expands to a point where we could never reach uh, another celestial body in a relative lifetime before uh, becoming turning insane or something. So the longer we live, the greater chance we have of being hit by gamma rays or suffering from an impact of a celestial body, or and suffering from some sort of disease that has bred itself to something that there's no cure for, so on and so forth. So yeah, the longer you live, the greater chance you have of dying, which is a very strange concept to think about. But yep. Drew says, with human lifespans, it is actually the older you are, the higher your life expectancy will be, which is also another thing too, right? It's a weird statistic to think about, but the older you get, the greater chance you have of living longer because you have avoided socially or economically or biologically the things that would normally end your life. And that's why people who have hard lives die early, because they're always bumping up against dangerous things. Whereas those who have an easier life, when it comes to food and exercise and exposure to radiation and exposure to the elements and mental stresses and physical violence from crime and things like that, the further you are separated from that, the longer your life is. So how hard is it to escape all the authority? I mean, you said there are pirates and outsiders all over the place, right? Yes. Uh, Here's a conundrum. The solar system, our solar system, is very empty. There's a lot of space between all the celestial bodies. There's a lot of space. At the same time, there's technology that allows us to go anywhere. So both there's space to expand and be left alone, to hide in your own cubbyhole, as well as the fact that there's very few places for you to hide where you can't be found. And does that sound, let me use a word, antithetical? Yes, but both are absolutely true at the same time. Let's see. Dead Man says, you sneak your way into the elites only to find out you had it better before you were an elite. Yep. But they don't want you to leave them and hunt you down when you try to leave. Yes, D. Hells yes. Yeah, you find out, like, guess what? You should have stayed where you were at. Because um there there are people who have, like in our own world, who have moved up in social status. And the further they move up in social status, they realize that they wish they were back with their own people, if that makes sense. Um, I would say, I hate to describe it this way, but there are people who live in very lower class societies that have much more love and um, duty and loyalty and trust and honesty amongst people living in the lowest realms of society than those who live above the higher levels of society, who are always trying to one up each other. So Caligula says, seems like insanity would be more likely than living until the solar system or universe dies. Yes, unless we have ways to get around the insanity. Um, I see you. I see you there, Shice. Yep. Don't sip for sorrows. Yeah. Congress Congress creatures must be learning that lesson right now. Yeah, they're just like, we're going to be the elite and everything. So, in this game world, we have something known as Vians, Vinds, Viands. Yeah, and part of that involves keeping ourselves mentally acute, keeping ourselves mentally fit as well as physically fit. Um, getting calcium treatments, radiation treatments against the cancers, atrophy treatments against muscles, and of course mental treatments, and then of course food and nutrients and things of that nature. So yeah. Taser Benot says, like in Zimbabwe, dysfunctional state, but people are doing way better than the media would have you believe. Barter system, so they don't need money. Yeah, they're here in the States. We have a huge, enormous homeless population, and homeless people tend to, they are both victims of oppression and violence, but there are homeless communities that treat each other with respect and will share even the minimal amount of money with each other and resources and such. So yeah. And I'm not advocating to be the elite or being homeless. I'm just saying that that's true. That there are people that are in elite status, and they have no trust with each other at all. It's just it's kill or be killed. So let's move over to technology. And one of the difficulties in science fiction gaming are categories of technology, and some people have a difficulty controlling how to use technology and what types of technologies exist in their sci-fi game. So it can be difficult, for example, when players I'm just make let's use modern day. You want to make an adventure and you want to make it difficult for your players, but you have to keep into account they all have cell phones. Every cell phone basically gives us all human knowledge in our back pocket. What's to stop a player from getting on their cell phone to look up something that disrupts or basically in effect eliminates the trouble that you decided to have in your modern game? Now take that problem and put it in the far future when players are definitely going to want to have clones and copies of their mind and send communication signals across the universe at light speed, and they have nanotechnology and laser weapons and blah blah blah. So how do we control that? So here is my intermediary function of how to control the technology. So the End King was talking about technologies being sectioned off almost as factions or guilds or religious institutions. And I think I'm going to incorporate that. So when a player has technology available in their character sheet, you are going to list a type of technology, and they are listed. There's 12 technologies, and they are listed here. Like things like chemtech, razor tech, vox tech, biotech, etc., from 1 through 12. And on your character sheet, you will you don't need to list every single item. What you will list is you will have access to, let me pick something. I'll pick something simple, laser tech, because that's very simple. Although razor tech is actually kind of a coolism, but so I'll just highlight that. So let's say you have access to razor tech, so you're going to list that on your character sheet, and that's all you need to list. What you have with your character are blueprints to print various devices listed under razor tech. So you don't need to list like a razor tech pistol or rifle or scanner or what have you. All you need to list is razor tech, and then you have access to that to 3D print that out in some way, shape, or form. The same thing is if you, let's say you also have access to cryotech, then you will have that listed on your character sheet, which means what you have listed is what you have access to. What's not listed is what you do not have access to. Let's move this over to the game master section, the spiral, the game master section. As a game master, when you go to a different habitat, you can list one or more of these technologies, and that's what they use. All the other technology doesn't exist. So if you say, well, they have access to storm tech and pyrotech, and that's it, then when the player characters go there and they're looking for other technology, maybe it just doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist in such high propensity to be able to find very quickly. Now, under each of these technologies, you might be thinking, well, what the hell is underneath it? So, as an example, Razor tech is based on X-rays and gamma rays. Razor technology basically produces, detects, monitors, and limits the effects of X-rays and gamma rays. That's what that technology is. For your badassery, walking around with a razor carbine, RAXOR, a razor carbine or a razor pistol or razor cannon or something like that, does that mean you can fire literal blasts of X-rays or gamma rays? The answer to that question is yes. Um, there's issues with having some of these different technologies. For example, the vast majority of these technologies are absolutely illegal in space habitats. You don't, if you even have the ability to print yourself out a I don't know, a razor tech rifle, uh, assuming that the 3D printer even allows you to do such a thing, firing it once inside of a habitat is going to set off damn near every radiation alarm. So while it's probably one of the most powerful, most penetrative weaponry systems out there, you're probably only going to be able to do it once before you have the authorities coming into hell after you. Same thing with a lot of other these things like laser technology, cryotech, blast tech, which is like, uses radio and microwaves and things like that. A lot of these technologies, you really don't want them to be used in habitats, and many 3D printing systems won't allow you to use them. So let's say you do find a 3D printer and you do want to print something out. Well, if you have laser tech and you want to print out an X-ray scanner, basically like a an iPad that you could put up against a wall so you can see like X-ray through something or whatever, chances are 99% of the time you're going to be able to do it because it's just a piece of technology that allows you to scan something, and scanners are just everywhere, so you could scan it. And then um let's say laser technology isn't just laser, but it's about light. So you can use lasers, you can make holograms. So laser technology isn't just lasers, it's about using light and distorting light, using light for laser distance ranging, using lasers as laser targeting systems, things like that. So that's how that technology is used. Let me get into back to see what you guys are talking about. Yes, razor tech pistol. You can see through someone. Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, you could probably fire through a wall, except the outer hull of a habitat, which blocks radiation. Yes, you could literally fire at someone through a wall and hit them with X-rays or gamma rays or something like that. Yes. Drew says tech is basically a crafting system, then, only that you have not worked but just print it. Yes, it is extremely simplified crafting system, if you want to call it a crafting system. So why is it categorized like this? First of all, I'm categorizing it this way so that we have an easy ability to decipher what kind of technology your character and the world has. So let's say you go to a hab on Luna and you go into that habitat, maybe they only use biotechnology and nanotechnology, right? Those are the two technologies they use. So if you as a player character know this and you want to print out a laser pistol, you know you won't be able to print one out there. You're going to have to get it from outside and sneak it in. Or maybe go through some kind of black market system, like I need a laser pistol and I need to find a black market and I need to go get one, which means that players are automatically going to have to bump up against third parties to achieve their goals. And those third parties might have their own agendas. Yeah, I'll sell you a laser pistol, but I'll also sell your information to the highest bidder, to somebody who wants to know who just bought a laser pistol, right? There's those kind of things. Shai says, is there some class of weapon that the mainstream media is irrationally afraid of, like an Obsidian AR? Yes. Yes, I specifically point out Razor Tech. Most people are like very, very anti-Razor technology when it comes to weaponry. It exists because radiation is everywhere in space, so you need tools to deal with that. Detecting how irradiated you are, detecting radiation leaks, using X-ray systems to find out if there's something wrong inside of a machine, X-ray systems to find out what's wrong inside of someone's body very easily. So that technology is useful, but you don't want people running around with razor cannons, right? So there is that. There is weaponry that is preferable to be used inside of habitats. Most of it is listed under either kinetotech, storm tech, or like cryotech. Why? Because kinetotech is basically kinetic systems, solid objects being tossed at somebody else. And so like combined with chemtech, you can fire like for example, a security personnel may run around with splat guns. Splat guns would just shoot big blobs of goo at you and splat you up against the wall. And it doesn't pierce the outside walls of habitats. There's like needler weapons in kinetotech, like smart projectiles, non-lethal impact weapons, and needler or shard weapons. And needler weapons basically shoot little tiny needles at you, maybe with like a drug in it, which pierces the skin, but it won't. It it moves at such low velocity it won't pierce the outer hull of a habitat. Storm tech. I guess I should refer to it as neurotech. Neurotech, where you can just use a stun gun and paralyze people or turn their brains off from their bodies, things like that. Storm tech does something similar in terms of electromagnetic energy. So it can create like you could with storm technology, you could print out electromagnets, meaning magnets that you can stick onto your outfit or use to stick onto the outer hull of machines. It can be used to disrupt or turn off rampaging robots, and you and EMP it. Again, there's a little fear because you don't want people walking around with EMPs, turning off starships, power sources, and things like that. So everything can be used as a weapon, but the technology the underneath technology, the tools, the scanners, the antithesis of these technologies is very useful. Most of these technologies also have the ability to combine them with armor. So, for example, under Razor Tech that protects you against radiation, if you're wearing both protective armor and Razor Tech shielding, you get twice your shielding. So you could have like a light armor with cryotech on it, which protects you from the frigid cold of space, or medium level armor with pyrotechnology, which protects you from the added heat and or pressure of Venus, or something like that, so on and so forth. There's also espionage technology involved in this. For example, like under laser technology, holographic imagery to protect you. Under pyrotechnology, there's the ability to um, dis- dissipate your heat signature, so heat signature systems don't find you. But also under pyrotechnology, that's securities. They might have heat signature systems in your habitat that detect heat signatures of people walking in places they shouldn't be, and such. So it works. Each system works against the other system. Whew, sorry about that. The N King says, "I assume your character is limited by the corporation they grew up around. No reason to let someone learn about a rival's science." Yes. The N King, you had this idea of creating technological guilds or um, almost institutions that separate from each other. And I'd like to incorporate that in there. So some of these technologies are embraced by a guild of individuals who know how to make these blueprints. And they use these blueprints, buy, sell, trade these blueprints, and even hunt after other people who have these blueprints that shouldn't have them in the first place. Or at least you have to pay a price to have those blueprints, or at least give up the information of where you got those blueprints from. So let me answer this question, because I think some of you are thinking about this. Why bother having the blueprints in the first place? Well, if you don't physically go from Mars to Jupiter, you may translate yourself by digital information by broadcasting your mind from Mars to Jupiter. And then when you arrive, your zipper is zipped into a jacket, in a different type of jacket. With you comes the blueprints that you may need to fulfill your mission. So you may not be able to physically take your laser weapons and your grenades and your high-tech weaponry with you physically, because you're going to have, maybe it's not possible, or you don't want to do it that way because you're going to have to sneak it in, and then you have to go to cargo area to get your weapons, and they might be searching it. But if I have blueprints, I can go to the black market maybe, or I have a badge that allows me, like an authority badge, like for law enforcement or a corporation or some kind of other faction that has power there, political faction, to print out what you want. So it may be necessary to digitally run, flee, hide, transport yourself as a digital being to someplace else, and then print out what you need. So yeah, you could be space cops and things like that. Taste of Banana says, have you done much research on what gamma rays and space radiation actually does to you? I've looked it up, and it's pretty horrible. It's pretty damn horrible. From what I understand, like, there's very little technology we have to even stop a gamma ray. And scientifically, the Earth could literally be pierced in half by a gamma ray burst from outside in our solar system. So we could literally die in an instant by a gamma ray burst that hits the Earth, and we would just never know it, except for maybe a little bit of the population on the other side of the Earth. But it's pretty horrible. So I did some research. Let me preface this by I'm an armchair studier, so I only know what's available online, and all that shit could be lies. But anyway, I did look it up in different places. Yes, it's pretty horrible. Shitlords is like space cops. It depends on what kind of constellation you're playing. So, constellation in this game is a combination of what all the player characters are linked together by their backgrounds and their status and their purpose. So yeah. Drew says, I want a commune who have some tech as their labor, like space communism. There is that too. There's some space communism, I guess you could call that. Let's see if I can find. Here we go. Here we go. I got a list of governments. Okay, I haven't filled them all out, but let's reduce the size here down a little bit. Okay, so I have a list of governments here. It's a pretty large, relatively large list. It's a 5d12 list, so you can roll any number from 5 to 60. I'm going to I have to restructure it because some are going to be more popular than others. If you're going to bother rolling 5d12, can you imagine rolling 5d12 and rolling all 5 ones? That'd be pretty bizarre. I'm probably going to change the curvature of this list, but I have it here just because I need a place to put it. But there are some really bizarre governmental types other than like communism stuff that's really, really bizarre. Things like logocracy is ruled by slick and convincing words. No, people known as slangwangers. Plutocracies, kleptocracies, sortition, thallocracy. There's a ton of these different things, and yeah, sounds like a good way to lose weight. Space communism is basically the Federation, a post-scarcity society. I would agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Some would say it's a little bit more socialist than communist, but kind of like that. It is a utopia that we don't understand how it works, and I like that. Taste of Banat says, so your utopian system can immediately devolve into a cult of personality military dictatorship. Okay. Don't think that this system, the setting of the system is one thing. It specifically isn't one thing. There are people who live in habitats throughout the solar system, even on the same planetary system or the same celestial bodies and things, completely different governmental systems, completely different societies. Why? Because just like on Earth, we could become very insular despite our proximity to other people. In space, it makes that proposition even worse, because when you have a space habitat, your only introduction to that space habitat is through maybe some digital communication, but you can't just walk from one neighborhood to the other. You have to travel through the vacuum of space to get someplace to even have an influence somewhere else. So unfortunately, most space habitats are very incestuous in terms of how they operate. And so there is no one governmental societal system that covers the entire solar system. It's actually pretty chaotic. And from the player character's point of view, they operate together as a constellation and will exhibit order in a world of chaos. And what do the players decide? I don't know. Depends on what you guys decide. So that it clearly is. Yeah, this is post-humanism. Nobody gets fat in space, unless that is a physical manifestation of wealth and power that people choose, and they think it looks good. Shice is like, awesome. Now we got at least 20 systems to argue about online. Publish it now. Yeah. Caligulus is like, so future space politics is only relevant if you can actually travel through space effectively. Kind of. Well, no, I'm taking the supposition that if you leave right now, whoever you are, and you leave and you go out into space and you say, I want to establish a community. And anyone who thinks and wants to be like me, like-minded like me, and live in that habitat, you're free to come there. And then those people travel there, they're going to be more extreme in their thoughts and actions than the people who don't travel there because they decided that that's not for me, right? So it is sortition writ large. People are traveling out into space to sort themselves into communities that they feel that their community is the best right way, but using technology to do that. So yeah, um, and understand that just because we here on Earth we call different types of politics a certain thing doesn't mean they actually operate like the politics they're named after, if you understand. So, for example, um, there is a difference in this list between direct democracy and and republicanism and what's the other type of democracy? Representationism, right? So all of those are completely different from each other. Yes. Taste of Banat says, excellent. Your whole campaign could be civil wars amongst a single group of space communists. Yes, absolutely. Like, let's be honest with each other. Again, most political systems in our world today do not operate like the way they are called. Right? It okay, so the description of communism says a classless, let me put the letter a classless society with public ownership of property and compensation by ability and need. Okay. Could you imagine a perfect society that is communist? The answer to that is yes. I'm sure there are people who could live together in a communal society, a communist society that is classless with public ownership of all the property and compensation to those by ability and need. We can also imagine this as the worst kind of government at all. They could call themselves communist, but it probably isn't. It would probably devolve into something more like a dictatorship or a totalitarian regime or an elitist system. So understand that the descriptions of governments are of their purest form, both for the betterment of the people there and or the worst treatment of the people there, depending on what you want and how you want to describe it. Yeah, like the Puritans that nobody liked here in Europe. Yep. Hey, listen, you don't don't use that kind of language with me, Drew. You exported Puritans over here to the United States. That's why we had witch trials. So don't you go pointing the finger. I'm being funny. I'm being very sarcastic with that. But yes, just like the Puritans. Shitlord says, you mean like democracy the way we have it in Germany right now? So here's my question. Is it really democracy? Just like here in the United States, is it really democracy, or is it a is it a capitalist? We probably live more in a capitalist representative governmental style based on elitism and monetary influence. We don't necessarily really live in a pure democracy, because a pure democracy would mean that we would decide on all things. What we do is we pick representatives, and then those representatives make decisions for us, for good or bad. Caligula says democracy equals plutocracy, statism equals plutocracy, anarcho-syndicalism equals plutocracy. And I have it written down here. Plutocracy, rule by the wealthy. Yep. Yep. We call things democratic, but are they really? Or is it just ruled by the wealthy? I would say that also we have a mix of rule by the wealthy and we have a little bit of meritocracy, rule by achievement, talent, performance, and tests. We have a little bit of that. We also have rule by mob. What's that called? Uh, oh, um, and we also have oligarchies as well. So we have o- Ochlocracy, Ochlo, Ochlocracy, ruled by mob, ruled by fear, anger, and hate by the masses who control authority. So if enough people get upset and become a mob, things change here in the States. So we have a little bit of that. We also have a oligarchy. Oligarchy ruled by a small group of people, often characterized by wealth, bloodline, ethnicity, chosen body, or historical significance. So we do have a little bit of we've got a bit of an oligarchy as well, basically ruled by people with very powerful last names, things like that. Shitlord says Amazon jungle where you can just sit around and do ayahuasca all day, the ideal form of state. Oh, you're so wrong. Meritocracy equals who can do the best job of kissing plutocrat ass. You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. Yeah, some people are very good at ass kissing and they take pride in it. So yeah. Drew says, is there a politics system that is ruled by storytellers? That is something we need. You know what? I didn't see a political system ruled by artists. What is the name of a political system ruled by artists? Patronage. Rulers, nobles, and very wealthy people use patronage of the arts to endorse their political ambitions, social positions, and prestige. That's the closest Google's giving me. Theocracy, government by divine guidance or by officials who are regarded as divinely guided. That's not it. Monarchy, nothing's coming up. Wow. Hey, Drew, maybe they're scared of the arts. Deadman says democracy is 10 people voting on what to eat, where 8 people each choose their individual favorite meal, and the last 2 vote for a plate of dog shit. Ha ha ha! Yo, shit. You're so wrong, Deadman, because you're so right. Yeah. Yeah. Because the ideal form of democracy would be we all vote on what kind of pizza we eat, and then we all vote on the toppings. But usually what ends up happening if you do it that way, what is it? The inverse proportional number of toppings on a pizza are related to the ratio of individuals. No, the number of toppings on a pizza are related to the inverse proportional number of individuals choosing what they want on the pizza. So the more number of people you have on the pizza, the less pizza toppings you have. I think it usually goes up. If you go to about 4 people, you'll end up getting a cheese pizza. Yeah, exactly, Drew. That's what I'm talking about. See, that's what I mean. Shai says politicians are storytellers and artists. Remember, Homer already covered that in the Odyssey. Telling lies and making up stories equals art. Ooh, pineapple and pizza is pure art. See, and that's where the political system breaks down. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me show this part of it. I'm going to show you greater things tomorrow, but I just wanted to talk about the partial success failure and how that works in the game and how you can make that work for how you want to tell your story and how technology works in a setting. So you're going to have categories of technology and you don't need pizza in Obsidian Star. You can just make yourself think you're eating a pizza. VR pizza. Ooh, that tastes so good. I want to live in a hey, maybe someone edits the taste of pizza out of your brain and it's causing you such psychological harm that you need to get back what the taste of pizza is, because even every time you eat it, it tastes like cardboard, no matter how great it actually tastes for everybody else. And that's your punishment. But anyway, guys, listen, I got to get out of here. You guys have to get out of here too. Thank you very much for spending your time here. Your time is very valuable. You will notice that the link to this file is there. Periodically, there will be no movement, and then I will start adding things to it because I have to write out my thoughts in another document and then import them, and then I'm going to lay them out. So this document will start to keep growing and growing with layout and art and things like that. And that document, this WIP, this work in progress, will keep expanding, but it will expands and it will expand and contract in fits and starts because I have to like get my thoughts together and then type it out and figure out how I'm going to lay it out, and then boom, it's going to get in there. So working with you guys. Um, and I've got to take a big bio break. Happy Monday. Yeah. Tech show devolved into politics equals a successful critical failure that's a partial success. I absolutely do agree with you there, Taste. I absolutely agree with you. That, you know why? Because I don't know, we're just not simpletons. You guys are brilliant. You guys are very thoughtful about life and such in general. And even when we disagree in such a manner that comes across to us to let us understand what the other person is saying. And I can't value that much more. I pick with Deadman on this channel a lot of times because I understand that Deadman and I are like politically on opposite sides, but I appreciate the fact that we both can agree. But first of all, we can both agree that we disagree, but we also can agree, like, listen, here's where I'm coming from. Deadman says, like, this is where he comes from. And then we both can express ourselves because to be honest with you, we're both actually probably more similar and more agreeable than even either of us even think we are. Um, Beyond even what I'm saying, because we both want the same things and we think about life in general and politics and all that kind of stuff, economics and all that kind of business. And most of us are on the same pages. We want solutions to problems that we see every day. And the veil has been pulled back from our eyes, and we hate the fact that we can see what's wrong and people just don't want to change it, don't want to do anything about it. So yeah, detailed descriptions of Obsidian gunshot wounds all day long. You're so funny. Taste says, can we do tech show part 2 tomorrow? Because you asked, the answer to that will be yes. Yeah, let's do that tomorrow. Let's do that. Yeah, absolutely. May your day not be a failure, at least not a critical one. No crit fails for you guys. No crit fails at all. Shai says, oh man, are you talking about real world politics now? Listen, we always talk about real world politics. Let's not get it twisted. We always do that. You guys do it a little bit more, do it more than a little bit, which is fine because we have examples. What I love is using tabletop role playing, which is this expansive seat of the pants creative process that allows us to question our real world things in a safe space. And that safe space is our imagination. It's the far future. It's a place that only exists within the mindscape of all of us. And so in that mindscape of all of us, we can always talk about all kinds of problematic bullshit, right? So guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Thank you for spending your time here. Your time is very valuable. I hope you're able to make some change in your life, if not in your tabletop role-playing game experience. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility.